it seems very likely now that Solana will be the next approved US crypto ETF after, of course, Bitcoin and Ethereum.
Hello, you're watching Proactive. Joining me is Bitwise Asset Management European Head Bradley Duke. Bradley, very good to speak with you. We see Bitcoin flirting with those all-time highs that it hit towards the end of May when it went over $111,000. So continuing to really move upwards.
Yeah. As you said, we've seen the Bitcoin trading around above 110,000 and higher on some exchanges. So reaching those all-time high levels, and then there's been a bit of profit taking and a bit of a sell-off in the last 24 hours. It's currently trading around 107,000, but the price of Bitcoin has really established itself now well above 100,000, where it's been trading for the last month or so. If you're looking back a little bit further, 2 months ago, let's not forget Bitcoin price was trading around 76,000. At this time in April, and so it's really it's pushed up and has sort of stabilized at this over 100,000 mark. So interesting time for Bitcoiners.
Bradley, where's the support coming from? Where's the demand for Bitcoin at the moment?
So that's a great question, Stephen. We have seen the demand at the moment coming mostly from corporate investors. So looking back on the history of Bitcoin, initially it was the grassroots retail enthusiasts, the Bitcoin enthusiasts who could see the potential of Bitcoin, the transformative potential of Bitcoin as a global monetary system. And then as time progressed, we've seen larger wealth management and private banks and family offices and hedge funds investing, and then the true institutional investors as well starting to make allocations towards Bitcoin as to boost the performance of their portfolios. And then we've seen sovereigns, we've seen countries, even the US, announcing a strategic Bitcoin reserve, states within the US as well, announcing that and formalizing in law, acquisition of Bitcoin as part of their, as a strategic reserve. And then more recently, now led by MicroStrategy, MSTR, which has now just changed the name to just Strategy, acquiring Bitcoin on unprecedented levels, as part of this leveraged bet on Bitcoin. So they've been raising debt and equity to acquire more Bitcoin, and it's been wildly successful for them in terms of the returns that they're getting. They are outperforming all companies, including the Mag 7. So we have today MicroStrategy owns over 580,000 Bitcoin, which is huge, and it's 10 times more than the next corporate holder of Bitcoin, which is Marathon Digital, followed by Riot Platforms, and then of course you have other sort of, let's say, copycat or companies that are following a similar strategy to MicroStrategy. We have Metaplanet in Tokyo. They're doing the same thing. Here in Europe, we have the Blockchain Group, and then it seems like every week there are more and more announcements of companies that are adopting this, this Bitcoin standard approach, including a company called Nakamoto and 21 Capital as well, which was a recently formed company. And so we've seen since really in the last year, we've seen the Bitcoin corporate holdings growing by more than 500,000 Bitcoin. So in Q2 2024, we saw 321,000 Bitcoin as part of the holdings. And at the moment, it's around 819,000. So significant growth. And I think this needs to be seen in terms of the context of what the Bitcoin supply is, the new supply of Bitcoin that's being mined. And in 2025, so far, 73,000 new Bitcoins have been mined. And when you set that against just the Bitcoin corporate purchases which are 3 times that at over 229,000 Bitcoin, you start to see that there is this, a structural imbalance between supply and demand in Bitcoin.
Bradley, some notable crypto news. The FCA planning to remove a ban on retail investors investing in crypto ETPs. So good news, I suppose.
Yeah, that's really good news. That's good news for the UK. It's good news for investors in the UK, especially retail investors. This ban has been in place since January the 6th, 2021. And so this is, it's been over 4 years. We imagine that this ban will be lifted towards the end of the year, or at least probably around, in Q4. We really welcome this news at Bitwise. Of course, institutional investors are entering the market, but the retail investor has always been, the liquidity in the market. And we've seen, the retail investors are able to invest in crypto ETPs across Europe, but not in the UK. And so we expect to see a nice surge in demand from the UK-based retail investor at that time.
And also some nice movement for Solana yesterday. It rallied on news that the SEC is imminent in its approval for a Solana ETF.
Yes, yeah. So we don't have an exact date on that yet, but we do know that the SEC has contacted all the issuers who had filed, an S1, which is an intention document that they would like to list an ETF. And so it seems very likely now that Solana will be the next approved US crypto ETF after, of course, Bitcoin and Ethereum. And of course, there's a lot of Solana enthusiasts out there. It's a great blockchain, and so this has really, pushed the price, and we expect this will continue once, a date has been set and a formal announcement has been made by the SEC.
Lots of positive momentum for cryptos, Bradley. Thanks as always for your insights.
Thank you so much, Stephen.